Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. Before I jump on to our next segment, let me remind you guys, if you're unsure about, what you want to do career-wise, a couple of years down the road, excuse me, one great way to get education that helps you get a great career in the game design industry is to check out fullsail.edu. Fullsail.edu/MLG is a site that will offer you more information about the different programs that Full Sail offers as far as game design, video production, 3D animation, graphic design, audio engineering, all these different features that come together, and it's very important into making a great game like Starcraft 2 or Call of Duty. If you want to check out that potential career route, go ahead and go to www.fullsail.edu/MLG. Our next segment is going to be on a game between Snoot and STC. Of course, this game is going to be focused on talking about when a Terran takes a late third in Terran versus Zerg and how that impacts the game. So we're going to talk off starting about flexible openings and when it's important to have one and when it's maybe not quite as important. Drop play when powering 2 base from a Terran. If you're just really cranking out a lot of units off 2 bases, what role does drop play have in your tactical plan to win the game? And then also base racing a Terran. And some things you have to keep in mind if you decide to do so. So, going to start this game at the 5:30 mark. We're going to look at this from a Terran point of view. And one thing that's important as a Terran player, right? If you're doing a harass-based opening, right? He got factory before command center. And he's even getting an army pretty quick behind it. So he's going for Hellbat drops, right? Harass-based openings in general, because your economy's not super strong, and because you're teching up to some harass unit, your army's not super strong early on, you have to be very flexible, because you're not going to have a lot of defending units early on. And because you're opening the harass style, you don't want to just build like 18 bunkers, because you don't have an insane economy either. You're really relying on the harass units. So scouting is very important, and being flexible with your opening is very important as well. We're doing a harass-based opening. If you're doing a macro opening, the scouting is kind of important, but it's not necessarily as important. You can just always get extra defenses, and you're not going to be too far behind because you're macroing aggressively. Or if you're doing it all-in, it's not that important to scout because you've already kind of decided that you're going to have to attack anyway, so what difference does it make, right? But scouting is most important, definitely, if you're doing a harass-based opening. So we can see here, because he scouted all the roaches, what's he doing? He's not getting Hellbats. He's actually just going straight. In fact, he's getting straight to Widow Mines, and he's getting a 3rd and a 4th Widow Mine before he gets the Hellbats. Because he knows, okay, I need additional Widow Mines to help deal with these roaches, because, of course, I don't have very many units, right? I've only got a couple Marines here. I'll get a Marauder out in a bit. But in a bit's going to help me when, the roaches are basically right at my doorstep already. Maybe not. So, he's being flexible in his opening, getting additional Widow Mines before he proceeds up to tech. And of course, he's going to have to not mine from his expansion for a little while. It's going to be annoying. But if these 2 additional Widow Mines weren't there, of course, the Zerg could actually just walk up to his main and do a ton of damage. So those Widow Mines are very, very effective at helping him defend against this type of opening. Next thing we're going to talk about is the follow-through to the opening. So you want to make the reaction so you can defend, but you still do want to get, of course, some harassment. And in this case, what he did is he picked up his first 2 Widow Mines that already detonated, and he adjusted his plan. Instead of the Hellbat drop, he's saying, I don't want to have to just, I mean, my build has to harass, right? I cut my economy early to get this harass done. So I'm still going to harass, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these Widow Mines that have already been used to help deflect the roach attack after they shot their volleys. Then I'm going to pick them up and use them to harass instead of the Hellbats. And of course, later, I can go do the Hellbat harass and make more Hellbats. I can do that as my next step. But first, still get some damage done, right? If you look here, he was able to get 16 worker kills against the Zerg. I think 8 or 9 of those were from the first 4 Hellions, and then, of course, the other 8 or so were from those Widow Mines. So very, very effective use. And even he forced additional 2 spores as well to detect those Widow Mines. So great flexible opening there by the STC. Now, of course, going forward in this game, he's still going to follow through his plan to do the Hellbat harass and, of course, attacking, controlling the front with the Widow Mines too, scouting out expansions. Being annoying, doing some damage, but overall, it's fairly even because Snoot defends well. But, of course, even if you defend well, STC is just going to pick the guys up and get out of there. He shouldn't take too many losses either. And he's scouted at 3rd base with the Widow Mine to try to get in there, spotted by that Spore Crawler, of course. So going forward, one thing to notice is what is STC doing? Well, he's not really planning for the late game. There's no 3rd orbital, which should have been done minutes ago for a macro opening, right? There's no 2nd E-bait. He's only going off of 1 engineering bait, just getting the attack. And what there is there's 7 production buildings. 5 barracks, 1 starport, 1 factory. Ideally, all constantly producing. and that's basically powering. It's a 2-base powering build is what it means, right? If you delay the 3rd base, crank up a lot of production as much as you can produce off 2 bases. Just focus on producing units. You're going to be powering units off 2 bases. And low attack from Snoot doesn't really do much, although these Zerglings get in here and they does more than it probably should have done if that things were lifted. But still not that big a deal. But the main important thing is understanding what's happening if you're doing this type of build where you're powering units off 2 bases. And what's important is that harassment is great, right? It's fun to harass, but if you're sacrificing economy to power a huge army, you're really looking to just smash your opponent and get a lot of damage done with the direct attacks. And that's what's really great about the Marauder Hellbat composition, is that Hellbats aren't really countered by anything that Snoot has. Banings can do pretty good against Hellbats if it's in huge numbers, but a Baning actually has to hit 3 Hellbats to be cost efficient. So as long as you split your Hellbats into groups of 2, you're going to be very, very great against Banings, and of course some Marauders backing them up are going to help out a lot against the Roaches as well. So this is where, of course, you ideally split the Hellbats a little more. But even so, they have enough life and they're cheap enough that they're actually pretty good against most of the stuff. A great unit to choose if you're going to do this 2-base powering build. Of course, what you're sacrificing is mobility, right? You don't have the mobility that the Stem Bio does, but you're getting the power of the pure stats. So great choice for the 2-base powering build where you want to come in, get damage done. And of course, at this point, we can see Snoot's, he's at 55 workers, so he's still doing great. But his army count has been kept very low by the aggressiveness of the STC. Now, going forward, the thing we have to think of is, okay, the straight-up attacks are great, but you know what? I'm a Terran player. I have Medivacs anyway, right? Where does drop play fit in for this very aggressive 2-base style? And what's important to note is drop play can still be good, but what you should do is you should look at your army composition, right? Let's say you know, okay, he's going Speedling, Baning, right? I have Marines, Marauders, and Hellbats. Which units are the least important to make my composition do well in these engagements, right? And those are the units you're going to pick up and use a drop play on. And it's not always an obvious call, because Hellbats are by far the most important unit in this composition, because they totally annihilate Speedlings. If they can't kill all your Hellbats with Banelings, their attack's going to be weak. So, in one hand, it's kind of a weird decision to use the Hellbats to drop. On the other hand, Hellbats are pretty good in the drop as well. Marauders are probably overall the weakest unit in this composition, right? They originally, in fact, he's not even really building them anymore. They originally designed because there was Roaches. There's no Roaches, Marauders. But of course, Marauders aren't that good at killing Speedlings, which are the main Zerg defense. So, Marines are kind of a compromise. Marines are actually great in the drop. 8 Marines with Stim will do what 2 Hellbats would. And I think they're slightly less important in your defense as well. So, I mean, the Hellbats did a great job in the drop, but I personally slightly prefer using the Marines to have a Hellbat heavier. I mean, I just love Hellbats, so I like them in composition. But SCC, of course, knows what he's doing, and he chooses to use those, the Marines. But what's really important here is as we go forward, continuing the 2-base power build from a Zerg perspective, all I have to do is keep defending, denying a Terran 3rd base, and a Terran will eventually mine out. And that's exactly what he's doing here. He's defending here. His counterattack ideally was going towards the 3rd. When he saw there's no 3rd, he's like, well, let's just go to National and see what we can do. I'm not able to do quite that much, but remember, I mean, he's now getting a 4th base. His upgrades are pretty good. They're 2-1 versus Terran, who's just 2-0. And he's got obviously a superior economy by 10 more workers, and the Terran is starting to mine out. But this comes a time when, of course, if you notice these things, Zerg's ahead in economy and bases, but the food's even. That's because Terran still has a larger army. That army can be a bit scary as the game goes forward. So we're going to fast forward just a little bit. Another drop here getting deflected. Not doing too terribly much. Another counterattack by the Zerg. Again, not doing as much either. But it's still a very, very even game as far as Zerg having an advantage economically, but Terran taking the better trades with the Hellbats in the composition and having the larger army in general. And now it comes a time when you see a Terran push and a Zerg yet to make a decision. Should I fight this push so that I continue just really hammering these counterattacks I've been doing? Right, and so Snoot says, you know what, this army is kind of tough. I'm going to go for the counterattack. And that's still, it's not too bad. But the one thing you have to keep in mind, though, is the Terran can always lift off their buildings. They have bunkers back there. But from a Zerg perspective, if you can kill this 3rd base, right, then a Terran's not mining. But you can't afford to let this army kill you as well. So a small run-by is great. Kill the reinforcements. But then you have to use the Infestors, maybe hold your 3rd base on top of the ramp with some great Fungals. You got Banings and Speedlings, and you can do a good job. The unfortunate thing is when you decide to then send the rest of your army to help you in a counterattack, And that's where all of a sudden it's not a speeding run by, right? What was a really cool speeding run by at first, all of a sudden has turned into a full-on base race as soon as Snoot decides, I'm going to send infestors and banings and additional reinforcements to make sure I kill his natural and third base. Then it turns on to a full-on base race. And the one thing, it can be tempting. You feel the Terran's open, but never base race a Terran. If you're thinking about base racing a Terran, just don't do it. It just doesn't work. And the reason why is, of course, is because they can lift off their buildings. And then if you both lose your workers, they can just drop a lot of mules, right? All they need to do is reestablish a base for 30 seconds, and they can get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of minerals in those 30 seconds just because they can bomb all their mules into one base. Whereas you, as a Zerg player or a Protoss player, if you get in a base race, the base race ends, and you like both players kind of backed away, now to retake your base, instead of 30 seconds of landing a building and dropping mules, you have to first rebuild a hatchery or nexus. That takes 100 seconds. Then you have to repopulate all your workers there, and then you can get money over time, right? So it's not going to work that well. And unfortunately, Snoot, even though he was doing a great position here, it's hard to call it a miscall. Could he have stopped this army? I feel like with the Banings, maybe morphing some more Banings and Infestors, he could have held the third while we just counterattacked here. But he didn't feel he could, and he went for the base race. And sometimes the base race works, right? As you can see here, Snoot with these Banings is actually, I mean, he kills the third base, kills all these SCVs, does massive, 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 massive damage. You're even stopping a natural as well, and SCC is basically not mining, right? But on the same hand, Snoot, of course, is down to a single base of his own. Even though he's able to clear this army up because SCC decides isn't paying attention, doesn't micro. We're at a situation I talked about, right? SCC just lands his command center, drops the mules, lands the command center, drops the mules. And he's already up to 700, 800, 900, 1,000 income. Snoot's at 500, and that 500 is only from these few minerals. I mean, Snoot's actually going to be at 0 in just a few seconds, right? Now he's at 300 because there's less mineral patches. It's going to keep dropping until this hatchery can finish. And during those next 2 minutes while he's trying to reestablish his economy and Terran's up at 2,000, Terran, of course, just builds a bunch of units, walks across the map, and wins the game, and SCC wins that game. So, a couple things that are really important about that game is, one, if you're a Terran with a harass-based opening, or any race, Protoss 2, you want to open a fast Oracle, you have to be very flexible because you don't have very many units, because your economy's bad because you don't open macro, and your army's not that great because you invested into harass. So you got to be very flexible at reacting to attacks coming at you. And then if you're going to power off 2 bases as Terran, it can work well. I wouldn't do too much drop play, right? It worked pretty well for SCC because it didn't do that much drop play, really focused on the major engagements. Drop play is more of a way of trading money for money. And if you're on less bases than your opponent, you don't want to trade money for money. What you want to do is say, okay, I have a bigger army, so in a straight confrontation, I'll trade more cost efficiently because my army is bigger, and that's the type of style you want to play. And then finally, as a Zerg player or a Protoss player, you really don't want to base race a Terran, even if you think you're in good shape. There's only a 1 in a million chance when a base race is actually the right idea. Or 1 in 100, actually. There are some rare cases, but in general, when in doubt, never base trade a Terran, and you'll be okay. That's really what decided this game. I think it was a very even game. It could have gone either way, and Snoot decides to go for that base trade, and that's where everything goes wrong. So wraps up this segment of Rules of Engagement. We'll take a short break and be on to the Q&A.